What you just heard are not myths. They are echoes, fragments of incidents recorded within the NightHowl files. Events that blur the line between predator and prey, legend and evidence. We are the archivists of the forbidden, the silent witnesses to a war fought in the shadows of our world. A war as old as the first fear of the dark, and as current as the last unexplained disappearance in your city. Tonight, we unseal a sequence of files concerning the most ancient and entrenched of our nocturnal adversaries, the Leakin and the Vampire. These 7 accounts span centuries and continents, from rural villages, buried in their own superstitions and fog, to the gleaming, unsuspecting metropolises of the modern age, unaware of the shadows that move just beneath their streets. Each file represents a violent collision between the human world and the ancient, hungry things that have stalked it since the dawn of the moon. Before we begin, we must advise you. Subscribe to this channel and activate notifications. The knowledge we are about to impart is not for the faint of heart, nor is it mere entertainment. It is testimony, a chronicle of the fragile boundary that separates us from them. And you will not want to miss what is uncovered next. Let us begin with the first file, retrieved from a fire-damaged strongbox in the Carpathian foothills. Designated Case File NHF 017. Case File NHF 017. The Sanguine Fangs of Castle Dimitrescu. Our file begins on October 12, 1923, in the remote village of St. Oltini, nestled in the shadow of the Carpathian Mountains. The primary witness was a young historian, Alexandru Petrin, sent from Bucharest to catalogue the forgotten archives of the long-abandoned Castle Dimitrescu. The local populace, a superstitious and insular people, warned him against the journey. They spoke of the ladies who still walked the upper halls, of a faint, sweet scent of decay and old roses that clung to the castle stones, and of the way the local wildlife gave the mountain a wide, silent berth. Petrin, a man of reason and academia, dismissed these tales. He set up his base in the castle's library, a cavernous room choked with dust and the ghosts of knowledge. On his 3rd night, he discovered a personal journal belonging to a former servant. The entries were mundane until he reached a passage dated 1742. It described the mistress of the castle, Lady Alcina Dimitrescu, not as a woman of nobility, but as a pale queen who drank the red wine of life from a gilded chalice. The final entry was a single, frantic sentence. The walls have grown teeth. I can hear them sharpening. Petrin began to experience anomalies that eroded his skepticism. He would find his meticulously organized papers subtly rearranged overnight. A cold spot would manifest in the center of the library, a pocket of winter in the autumn chill. He started to hear things, the soft rustle of silk in empty corridors, a low, melodic humming that seemed to emanate from the very walls. The air would occasionally thicken with the cloying scent of roses and something else beneath it, the metallic tang of old blood. One morning, he found a single, long, black strand of hair laid perfectly across an open page of the journal. It was too coarse, too sharp to be human. Driven by a compulsion he could not explain, Petrin ventured into the castle's undercroft, a place the villagers called the oubliette. His lantern flickered. There, in the oppressive silence, he saw them. 3 tall, impossibly pale figures stood motionless in the gloom, their forms indistinct. As his light found them, the central figure turned. Her eyes were like polished gold, her mouth a slash of crimson. She smiled, and her jaw unhinged, distending to reveal for long, needle-like fangs that slid from her gums. She did not speak, but a voice echoed directly in Petron's mind, a sound of honey and graves. "You have been tasting our history, little scholar. Now you will join it." Alexandru Petron was found a week later by a search party, wandering the woods at the base of the mountain. He was emaciated, his skin sallow, and he could not speak. In his coat pocket was his own field journal, filled with his normal, precise script until the final page. There, in a shaky, desperate hand, were the words, "The walls have teeth," written over and over. The official report listed his condition as severe malnutrition and psychological breakdown brought on by isolation. The castle Dimitrescu was declared structurally unsound and placed off-limits. To this day, no one has explained the 2 small, perfectly circular puncture wounds on his neck, hidden just beneath his collar. The file has been marked contained under crimson quarantine. We believe the entities known as the Dimitrescu lineage entered a state of prolonged torpor following the incident. However, recent satellite thermal scans of the region show anomalous heat signatures emanating from the castle's deepest foundations. They are not dormant. They are waiting. But the ancient stone of Europe does not hold a monopoly on predation. Our next file transports us across the ocean to a place where the trees are older than nations and the soil is steeped in a different kind of hunger. Case File NHF 044. The Wendigo of the Blackwood Vale. Date: November 5th, 1987. Location: the isolated logging town of Ironwood, Maine. The primary witness was Elias Thorne, a game warden tasked with investigating a sudden, violent decline in the local deer population. The people of Ironwood were a hardy, practical breed, but they spoke of the deep woods, the Blackwood Vale, in hushed tones. They had old words for the things that lived there, words like Shanu and Wechuge, remnants of a forgotten indigenous lore that the settlers had adopted and feared. Thorne's initial investigation pointed to a rogue bear or a pack of coyotes. The evidence was messy, brutal, but then he found the first set of tracks. They were bipedal, immense, with a stride length that suggested a creature over 8 feet tall. The prints were distorted, showing a foot that was neither human nor bear, with long, twisted toes that ended in points. And they were cold. Even in the mild autumn air, the impressions in the soil were rhymed with a faint, unnatural frost. The rational world began to curdle around Warden Thorne. He started hearing a sound on the wind, a high, thin whistling, like bones scraping against rock. The smell of the woods changed. The clean scent of pine and damp earth was now undercut by the stench of rot and a strange, coppery odor, like spoiled meat and lightning. He interviewed a trapper named Joe Crocker, who lived on the edge of the vale. Crocker's eyes were wide with a primal fear. "It ain't a bear, Warden," he whispered, his cabin door bolted shut. "Bears don't walk on two legs for long, and they don't smell of winter in the fall." That night, something circled Thorne's cabin, its footsteps crunching the frozen leaves with a weight that shook the walls, driven by duty and a growing cold dread. Thorne followed a new set of tracks deep into the heart of the Vale. He found a clearing, a place where the trees were splintered and the ground was churned to mud. And there it was. It was emaciated to the point of being a skeletal mockery of a man. Its skin stretched tight and gray over its frame. Its eyes glowed with a pale, sickly light from the depths of their sockets. Its head was devoid of hair, its mouth a lipless gash filled with yellowed, needle-sharp teeth. It let out a hiss, and the air around it dropped 20 degrees. From its chest cavity, where a heart should be, a faint, malevolent red light pulsed. This was not a werewolf. This was something older, something born of starvation and cannibalism, a Wendigo. Elias Thorne was discovered 3 days later, stumbling out of the woods. He was suffering from severe hypothermia and acute psychosis. He was clutching his service revolver, all 6 rounds fired. The official report stated he had a fatal encounter with a rabid grizzly bear, which he had heroically dispatched. The body of the bear was never recovered. The town of Ironwood accepted the explanation, grateful for any closure. They never found the remains of the missing trapper, Joe Crocker, either. Only his abandoned cabin, the door clawed to splinters from the outside. This file has been classified active, subject uncontained. The entity designated as the Blackwood Wendigo remains at large within the Vale. Our agents have placed warning sigils and sonic deterrents along the perimeter, but the recent unseasonal blizzards and the reports of missing hikers suggest its territory is expanding. The hunger of the Wendigo is eternal, and the woods of Maine are deep and dark. Case File NHF 078. The Cursed Choir of St. Hilaria's Orphanage. Date: February 14th, 1954. Location: the coastal town of Ravenspire, Cornwall. The primary witnesses were the staff and children of St. Hilaria's Orphanage, a grim, gray stone building perched on the windswept cliffs. The headmistress, Agatha Moorcroft, was a severe woman of unwavering routine. In her weekly reports to the parish council, she first noted the unsettling nighttime harmonies that began shortly after the arrival of a new, unnamed benefactor. A pale, elegant gentleman who insisted the children practice their choir rehearsals after sundown, claiming the acoustics were superior in the stillness of night. The initial signs were subtle. The children, once boisterous, grew pale and listless during the day, their eyes sensitive to light. Their voices, however, became unervingly beautiful. Their choir practice, once a cheerful cacophony, transformed into a single, flawless instrument that echoed over the cliffs, a sound so pure it was almost painful to hear. A local physician, called to examine a child for chronic fatigue, noted in his private log an abnormal pallor and a curious lack of appetite for solid food. He found 2 faint, pinprick scars on the child's neck, dismissed as insect bites, The day staff began to resign, citing a profound and creeping melancholy. They reported that the mirrors in the main hall had been covered with black cloth on the orders of the benefactor. The scent of the orphanage changed. The familiar smells of soap and boiled cabbage were now undercut by the faint, sweet odor of decay, like forgotten funeral lilies. The children's repertoire shifted from hymns to ancient, dissonant compositions in dead languages. Their eyes, when caught in a sliver of moonlight, seemed to possess a faint, silver sheen. They never left the orphanage grounds after dusk. The truth was uncovered by a young groundskeeper, Liam Byrne, who grew suspicious and hid in the choir loft one evening. He watched as the benefactor, a Mr. Valerius, entered the hall. The man moved with an impossible, fluid grace, casting no reflection on the polished floor. He raised a conductor's baton, and as the children began to sing a haunting Gregorian chant, their mouths opened a fraction too wide, their canines elongated, sharp, and needle-like. The music was not just music. It was a tool, a vibration that seeped into the stone and soil, a siren's call that lured passing ships closer to the treacherous rocks below. The choir was not singing for praise. They were fishing. A freak storm hit Ravenspire the following night. A merchant ship, the Sea Drake, was wrecked upon the cliffs directly below the orphanage. By the time rescue crews arrived at first light, the orphanage was empty. Not a soul remained, no children, no staff, no Mr. Valerius. The official inquest concluded that the entire population had been tragically lost at sea while attempting a rescue. The wreck of the Sea Drake yielded no survivors, and its cargo manifest listed most of its hold as empty. The case was closed. Only the local lighthouse keeper, in his private diary, questioned why the lifeboats from the Sea Drake were found neatly stowed, and why the bodies recovered from the shore were all found drained of blood. This file is sealed under Siren Protocol. We believe the St. Hilaria's choir was a mobile feeding ground for a vampiric bloodline that used psychic resonance to lure its prey. The entity known as Valerius is believed to be an operative of the ancient, echoing court. To this day, on the anniversary of the storm, fishermen off the coast of Ravenspire report hearing the faint, beautiful sound of a children's choir carried on the wind, a sound that beckons them towards the rocks. Not all monsters are born of ancient castles or forgotten lore. Some are forged in the crucible of modern industry, where the scent of blood is masked by the smell of grease and steel. Case File NHF 109. The Shift Wolf of the Gearsford Foundry. Date: October 31st, 1999. Location: the decaying industrial city of Gearsford, Pennsylvania. The primary witness was Maria Rossi, a security guard working the overnight shift at the abandoned Gearsford Ironworks. The city was a skeleton of its former self, a place of rust and forgotten promises. The locals avoided the foundry, claiming the place was bad luck, that the old machines still ran at night, powered by something other than electricity. They spoke of the Clankin Man, a figure from local ghost stories. Rossi's first week was quiet. Then, the motion sensors began to trigger in sequence through the main fabrication bay. a pattern that suggested a swift, large creature on the prowl. Reviewing the grainy black and white footage, she saw only a blur of distorted pixels. Then she found the first mark. On the door to the foreman's office, 5 deep grooves were torn into the solid steel, as if by a monstrous can opener. Beside the door, a puddle of a strange, viscous, silver fluid steamed slightly on the concrete. It smelled of ozone and hot metal. The foundry was never silent. Rossi began to document the sounds that lay beneath the hum of her own equipment. The scrabble of claws on sheet metal, a low, guttural growl that seemed to sync with the thrum of the city's power grid, and a rhythmic, metallic click-clack-click like a broken gear turning. The air grew thick with the smell of ionized air, scorched wire insulation, and the hot, coppery scent of an overworked motor or blood. She found more of the silver fluid, now in a trail leading down into the basement levels, the old smelting pits. Her flashlight would catch glimpses of movement in the forest of dead machinery. A hulking, metallic shadow that absorbed the light. On the night of October 31st, a citywide power outage plunged the foundry into absolute darkness. Using her emergency lantern, Rossi descended into the smelting pit. There, in the cavernous space, she saw it. It was a monstrous hybrid of flesh and rusted iron, a wolf-like creature the size of a grizzly bear. Patches of mangy, grease-stained fur were interspersed with sections of corroded steel plating that seemed fused to its skin. One of its eyes was a milky, bestial yellow. The other was a cracked, red camera lens. It opened its maw, and instead of a howl, a blast of static and a high-pressure jet of superheated steam erupted from its throat. Its claws were not bone, but hardened, twisted rebar. The power returned. The creature vanished into a maintenance shaft too small for a human to follow. Maria Rossi resigned the next day, citing hazardous working conditions. The official report from the foundry's owners dismissed her claims as Halloween hysteria, attributing the damage to vandals and the strange fluid to a leaking capacitor. The Gearsford Ironworks was demolished 6 months later to make way for a new warehouse. During the excavation, workers reported finding a network of tunnels beneath the foundation, lined with strange, fused scrap metal and reeking of ozone. No biological remains were ever found. This file is classified theoretical anomaly. The entity, designated as a Gearnar or Shiftwolf, represents a terrifying new evolution. We theorize it is a lycanthrope, perhaps a former factory worker, whose curse has mutated, intertwining with the industrial toxicity and latent psychic energy of a dying city. It does not hunt in forests. It hunts in the ruins we have built for ourselves. And as more cities fall into decay, we fear its kind may multiply. Case File NHF 155. The Silent Howl of the Moscow Metro. Date: December 5th, 1986. Location: the Profsoyuzhnaya station, deep within the Moscow metro system. The primary witness was Comrade Lieutenant Grigory Volkov, a KGB officer assigned to investigate a series of unexplained disappearances within the metro's restricted, deeper-level service tunnels. The official state position was that the missing persons, trespassers, urban explorers, and a few maintenance workers were victims of cave-ins or had simply gotten lost. But Volkov's sealed report to his superiors mentioned the one piece of evidence that defied explanation: the audio recordings. The recordings were recovered from a lost spelunker's pack found near the abandoned Borodino radial. On the tape, amidst the sounds of frantic breathing and scrambling, was a vocalization that chilled even the most hardened audio analysts. It was a howl, but unlike any from a natural wolf. It was a wave of pure, subsonic distortion that caused the recording equipment to peak and distort. It was a sound that seemed to bypass the ears and resonate directly in the spine, a frequency of pure predatory intent. Volkov noted in his log, "The sound is not heard. It is felt. It is a silence that screams." Volkov, armed with specialized audio dampening gear, led a three-man team into the abyss. The air grew cold and still, the ever-present hum of the metro's machinery fading into an unnerving void. Their own breath seemed loud, intrusive. They found evidence of habitation, but not human. Walls scoured by immense claws, not of bone, but of something harder, like filed steel. The smell was not of wet animal, but of static discharge, ozone, and cold stone. Their communications crackled with a low, guttural static that formed patterns, almost like speech. One of his men, Private Denisov, began to complain of a pressure in his teeth and a metallic taste in his mouth. He claimed he could hear whispers in the static, voices telling him to step into the quiet. They cornered their quarry in a vast, circular maintenance cavern, a place not on any official schematic. Their flashlight beams converged on a creature that defied all known biological and mechanical classification. It was lupin in shape, but its form was seemingly carved from shadow and polished basalt, absorbing the light rather than reflecting it. Its eyes were not eyes, but two voids that pulsed with a deep, resonant frequency. It opened its maw, but no sound emerged. Instead, a visible wave of distorted air shot towards them. The force was not physical. It was sonic. It struck Private Denisov, and the man did not scream. He vibrated, his form blurring at the edges for a split second before he simply disassembled. His body torn apart at a molecular level by the silent, concussive force. There was no blood, only a fine, red mist. Volkov and his sole surviving subordinate escaped, their report buried under the highest level of state secrecy, classified as a sonic weapon test by a foreign power. The Profsoyuzhnaya tunnels were permanently sealed with concrete and rebar. Private Denisov was listed as killed in the line of duty during a structural collapse. To this day, urban explorers who venture too deep into the old metro tunnels tell stories of the silent stalker and the strange pressure headaches that precede a disappearance. They find cameras with lenses cracked from the inside and audio recorders filled with nothing but a perfect, absolute digital zero. This file is sealed under Quarantine Zeta, Apex Sonic Threat. The entity, designated as a void howler, is considered one of the most dangerous lycanthrope-adjacent anomalies on record. It does not consume flesh. It consumes sound, life, and space itself. We believe it is not a singular being, but a symptom of a deeper, more terrifying ecological niche that has opened in the silent, man-made darkness beneath our cities. We monitor all deep earth seismic and sonic activity. The silence is what we fear most. From the profound silence of the underground, we journey to a place where the noise of life was once plentiful, but was systematically collected. Case File NHF 092. The Huthfire Vampire of Port Isolde. Date: the winter of 1819. Location: the remote fishing village of Port Isolde, on a wind-lashed island off the coast of Scotland. The primary record comes from the diary of Elspeth MacLeod, the village midwife and keeper of its oral histories. The file began when a trading schooner found the village not dead, but empty. There were no bodies, no signs of struggle. Kettles still hung over cold hearths, and toys lay in the dust. The only thing missing was every single man, woman, and child. Elspeth's diary was found open on her table, the final entry incomplete. According to the diary, it began with a storm and a shipwreck. A single survivor washed ashore, a man who called himself Dr. Alistair Finch. He was charming, educated, and claimed to be a philanthropist seeking a quiet place to conduct his research into atmospheric energies. He was welcomed, given shelter in the old lighthouse. The first strange occurrence was the silencing of the village dogs. Their barks, which had been a constant soundtrack to island life, ceased overnight. Finch claimed to have administered a soothing tonic for the good of the community. The villagers, grateful for the quiet, did not question him. Elspeth's entries grew increasingly uneasy. She wrote that the village was becoming too quiet. The laughter of children seemed muted, their games less boisterous. The arguments between husbands and wives died down into apathetic silence. The very spirit of the people was leaching away. Dr. Finch, however, seemed to grow more vibrant, his eyes brighter, his voice more compelling. He began hosting listening sessions in the lighthouse, where villagers would sit in silence as he measured the quality of the air. Those who attended returned placid, docile, and duller. Elspeth noted a strange phenomenon. The hearth fires throughout the village, once roaring against the coastal chill, now produced heat but no crackle, no pop, no sound at all. Suspicious, Elspeth crept to the lighthouse during a session. Peering through a crack in the boarded-up window, she saw the villagers seated in a circle, their faces blank. Dr. Finch stood in the center, but his form flickered like a heat haze. From his open mouth, a faint, shimmering vapor was being drawn from each villager. A vapor that carried with it the faint, ghostly echoes of their laughter, their whispered secrets, their shouted joys, the entire symphony of their lived experiences. He was not drinking blood. He was consuming sound, memory, and soul. The hearth fires were silent because the life, the very noise of living, was being harvested from the village itself. He was a psychic vampire, feeding on the energy of human experience. Elspeth's diary ends mid-sentence. He does not take their blood, he takes their The rest of the page is torn. Search parties scoured the island for years, finding no trace of the 97 souls of Port Isolde. Dr. Alistair Finch vanished. The official Admiralty report attributed the disappearance to a collective madness, leading to mass emigration or drowning, a theory widely disbelieved. The village remains a ghost town to this day. Visitors report an unnerving, profound silence, a place where even the wind seems to die, and where the few brave souls who spend the night speak of waking up feeling emotionally hollow, as if they have dreamed all their memories away. This file is classified Echo Eater, pattern active. The entity known as Dr. Alistair Finch is a high-priority target for our order. He represents a strain of vampirism that is far more insidious and difficult to detect than the sanguinarian kind. He does not leave corpses. He leaves empty shells and silent towns. We have linked his signature, the silencing of ambient life and the draining of emotional resonance, to at least 12 other vanishing village incidents across the British Isles and Scandinavia over the last 2 centuries. He is still out there, a connoisseur of lost songs and stolen stories, and his thirst is eternal. Case File NHF 001. The Chimera of Blackstone Asylum. This is the file that founded our order. Date: October 31st, 1748. Location: the Blackstone Asylum for the Criminally Insane, a fortress-like institution built upon a desolate moor in northern England. The primary witness was the institution's director, Dr. Alistair Finch, a name you will recognize from a previous file, though the man himself was a different, far more foolish creature. He was a man of arrogant science, who believed the mind, and indeed the soul, could be categorized, dissected, and corrected. His personal journals, recovered after the incident, detail his magnum opus. The rehabilitation of 2 specific patients, known only as Subject Gamma and Subject Lambda. Subject Gamma was a feral man found living in the forests of Bavaria, his body covered in coarse, dark hair, his canines permanently elongated. He was prone to violent, bestial rages that synced with the lunar cycle. Subject Lambda was a gaunt, aristocratic prisoner transferred from the dungeons of Wallachia, who refused all sustenance but raw meat and displayed a pathological aversion to sunlight and silver. Dr. Finch, in his hubris, saw them not as monsters, but as case studies. He theorized that their conditions were 2 sides of the same psychological coin, a lycanthropic hysteria and a sanguinary delusion. He began a series of experimental treatments, including electrogalvanic therapy and forced proximity, intending for their madnesses to cancel each other out. The first sign of catastrophic success was the silence, the constant background cacophony of the asylum. The screams, the moans, the rattling of bars ceased over a single night. The air grew thick and heavy, smelling of ozone, wet earth, and dried blood. Orderlies reported the asylum's population of rats had either fled or been assimilated. They found rodents with patches of pale, hairless skin and eyes that glowed faintly in the dark. The electrical systems began to fail, the gas lights flickering with a strange, pulsating rhythm. Dr. Finch, in his final journal entry, wrote with a trembling hand. They are not canceling each other out. They are conversing. I can hear it in the walls. A language of growls and whispers. On the night of the full moon, the silence broke. A sound erupted from the experimental ward that was neither a howl nor a shriek, but a horrifying synthesis of both. A screeching, guttural roar that shattered glass and clawed at the mind. Dr. Finch, armed with a lantern and a pistol loaded with silver slugs, went to confront his creation. What he found in the treatment chamber was not two subjects, but one. The being was a grotesque fusion, a patchwork of Lambda's pallid, elegant features and Gamma's brutish, muscular frame. One of its arms ended in long, bone-white claws, the other in sharp, black talons. Its eyes were a chaotic swirl of bestial yellow and vampiric crimson. It saw Finch, and it spoke with a dual-layered voice, a harmony of a snarl and a hiss. You gave us the key. We have unlocked the door. Then it moved, not with the brute force of a wolf or the grace of a vampire, but with a terrifying, unnatural precision that belonged to neither. Blackstone Asylum was consumed by a fire so intense that the very stone melted. Of the 300 souls within, no bodies were recovered. The official inquest ruled it a tragic accident caused by a lightning strike and faulty gas lines. Dr. Alistair Finch was listed among the dead. But our founders, the first archivists, knew the truth. They found Finch's journal in a fireproof strongbox, along with a single, chilling artifact, a fragment of a jawbone, containing both the elongated canine and a needle-like fong, fused together at the root. The creature, designated the Blackstone Chimera, had not burned. It had escaped into the world. This file is the cornerstone of our archive, classified Omega Prime, the broken law. The Blackstone Chimera represents the ultimate transgression, a violation of the ancient, natural enmity that has kept the vampiric and lycanthropic forces in a state of balance and away from the path of hybridization for millennia. We do not hunt it. We observe it. We track the signs of its passage. Livestock drained of blood yet torn to pieces. Forests where the trees are blighted with a black frost yet bear claw marks. And the rare, terrified accounts of a creature that is neither one thing nor the other, but a perfect, terrible whole. It is the living embodiment of the hidden war we document, and it is proof that some truths are so dangerous, they must be preserved in silence, lest they inspire another fool to try and play God. These 7 files, from the stone corridors of Castle Dimitrescu to the silent ruin of Port Isolde, and the blasphemous birth in Blackstone Asylum, confirm a truth humanity has long labored to forget. The night is not empty. It is a realm governed by rules older than our kingdoms, populated by hungers older than our species. The lichen, the vampire, and the things that exist in the spaces between, they are not mere stories. They are a brutal, functioning ecology of the unseen. We have witnessed the sanguine aristocracy, the bestial curse, the psychic parasite, and the industrial abomination. We have seen what happens when the ancient laws are broken, when the balance is shattered. The war beneath the moonlight is not a simple battle of Fang versus Claw. It is a complex, shadowed conflict that bleeds into our world, leaving behind empty villages, silenced metros, and a chilling verdict. The moon never shines on innocence. It illuminates a hunting ground. The Order of the NightHowl Files exists to document this war, to bear witness so that humanity is not entirely blind. But our archives are built not only by our agents, but by those who have glimpsed the truth and lived to whisper of it. If you have encountered something you believe belongs in our records, a sound you cannot explain, a shape in the darkness that defied logic, a family story that hints at a forgotten pact or a hidden lineage, submit your account in the comments below. The Order reviews all testimonies. Some are cross-referenced. A select few are chosen for further investigation. Your voice could become part of the next declassified transmission. Subscribe to this channel. Turn on all notifications. The shadows move quickly, and the next name etched into these archives could be yours. Keep your lanterns close. Document everything. And remember what you have learned here tonight. This has been a declassified transmission from the NightHowl Files. Until the next moon rises, stay awake, stay wary, and never walk alone.